Before there were alphabets, before kings raised cities from dust or priests inscribed laws upon stone, the ancients looked up, not with awe alone, but with memory, as if the heavens were not a new wonder, but an old home. They saw in the sky not chaos, but pattern, not fireballs and void, but a sacred map. They named the great wheel of stars the Zodiac, and what modern minds mistake for mere astrology, the ancients revered as the very structure of reality, the 12-fold rhythm by which time itself breathes. But what is the Zodiac? It is not simply the 12 signs, Aries through Pisces, which now adorn horoscopes and dating profiles. No, that is but the shadow of the original thing. The true Zodiac is a celestial cipher, a divine blueprint encoded across civilizations, each sign a symbolic gate to deeper truth, each glyph a secret key passed through mystery schools and forgotten temples. Imagine it, a vast wheel above, forever, turning 12 constellations marking 12 archetypal forces, 12 divine emanations. Aries, not a ram but the first spark of becoming. Taurus, not a bull but the grounding of spirit into matter. Gemini, not twins, but polarity, duality, the split that births the mirror, each sign a station on the soul's long pilgrimage. This knowledge was never meant for the many. It was carved into temple ceilings, hidden in star charts, whispered in the inner sanctums of initiates. The Sumerians, Egyptians, Persians, Greeks, and even older cultures, those now buried beneath the sands of time, all built temples aligned not just with the earth, but with the heavens. They did not worship the stars, they read them, and what they read, they encoded. The Zodiac was not a superstition, it was a language of consciousness, mapping not personality, but reality itself. A divine anatomy of the cosmos, as above, so below. The first Hermetic law is written into the Zodiac like a spiral staircase connecting the mortal and the divine. But something happened. The ancient teachings were fractured. The keepers of the mysteries vanished or were silenced. The Zodiac was demoted from sacred scripture to parlor trick. A veil was drawn. Yet still, the symbols remain. They linger in stained glass, carved cornices, cathedral domes, esoteric manuscripts. We see them, but we do not know them. 12 signs like forgotten letters from a tongue older than time. And so we begin not with explanation, but with immersion. This journey will not teach you about the Zodiac. It will initiate you into its secret. We will descend into forgotten ziggurats and rise into hoary domes. We will trace the 12-fold spiral across the Hermetic traditions, Gnostic gospels, ancient calendars, and alchemical manuscripts. We will awaken the archetypes and enter the cosmic temple where time, myth, and memory converge. But before we step further, we must ask, who first carved the heavens into 12, and why in the oldest myths? It is not mankind who created the Zodiac, but the gods, or those beings mistaken for gods, the Watchers, the Shining Ones, the Apkallu, the Anunnaki, those who descended to teach or to rule. Were they real? That is a question for another part. But this we know, wherever they walked, they left behind a wheel. And the wheel still turns, beneath the clamor of modern life. Beneath the digital fog and broken clockwork of history, the Zodiac pulses like a heartbeat, a cosmic engine, a divine code, and to decode it is to remember who we were before forgetting. Let us step now through the first gate. The stars await. The Zodiac did not rise by accident. It was not the invention of stargazing farmers or idle poets. It was built deliberately, precisely like a temple, like a machine. And behind its construction stand the shadows of forgotten civilizations, whose names have been erased or worse, rewritten, long before Babylon named the constellations, before Egypt aligned her pyramids to Sirius. There were the sages of the deep time, the keepers of the sacred measure. In the ruins of Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known megalithic site, great T-shaped stones rise in enigmatic circles, stones older than agriculture, older than cities. Etched into them are animal symbols that eerily mirror the layer. Constellations of the zodiac, a scorpion, a bull, a lion, a bird. Did the builders of Göbekli Tepe chart the stars 12,000 years ago? And if so, from where did this knowledge come? Some say it came from the stars themselves. Across mythologies, we find beings who descend from the heavens after great cataclysms, bearers of knowledge, bringers of light. In summer they are the Anunnaki. In Egypt, Thoth, the ibis-headed god who gave writing and calculation. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who taught the calendar and the stars. In India, the rishis, seers who heard the hymns of the cosmos before they were ever spoken. These are not gods in the modern sense. They are initiators, architects of the great celestial order. They encoded their teachings in geometry, number, story, and sky. But their greatest creation, their most enduring, was the zodiacal wheel. Not merely a calendar, not merely a mythic map, but a vault of knowledge. Encoded in this 12-fold circle is a sacred pattern seen across the world. The 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 Olympians, the 12 disciples, the 12 labors of Heracles, the 12 imams of Shia Islam, the 12 stations of the cross, always 12 and always turning, always echoing the same celestial blueprint. Why 12? Because 12 divides the circle. 12 harmonizes chaos into cosmic order. 12 is not random, it is sacred. And the zodiac's builders knew this. Their knowledge of the heavens was not primitive, it was precise beyond belief. They tracked the precession of the equinoxes, the 25,920-year cycle in which the Earth slowly wobbles, causing the stars to shift their positions over millennia. This is a phenomenon only rediscovered by modern science in the last few centuries. But the ancients knew. They aligned their temples to the stars not just for beauty, but for transmission. Each era of precession, known as a Great Age, was said to be governed by one sign of the zodiac. We are now in the twilight of Pisces, the cusp of Aquarius. But in the age of Taurus, the bull was worshipped. In the age of Aries, the ram became sacred. This is why Moses, descending from Sinai, shattered the golden calf, not just an idol, but a relic of the age of Taurus. He came bearing the horns of a new age, Aries. Thus, history turns on astral hinges. The zodiac was the secret calendar of kings and priesthoods, of prophets and pharaohs. It foretold the rise and fall of empires, encoded sacred festivals, and whispered when to plant, when to harvest, when to wage war or retreat into ritual. But this system, this magnificent cosmic order, was guarded. Only the initiates of the mystery schools could read it. Only those who passed through the rites, who symbolically died and were reborn, could understand the heavenly mechanics. Beneath the signs, the builders did not merely watch the stars. They remembered them, because, as Hermetic teachings say, we are starborn. The soul descends through the gates of the zodiac, taking on the influences of each sign before, incarnating in matter. And at death, the soul must ascend once more, shedding the layers of the celestial wheel in reverse, a return, a homecoming. This is why the zodiac is not just about fate, it is about initiation. To read it is to remember the divine path, to awaken. And now, as we stand among the ruins and look once more to the stars, the builders whisper again, not in words, but in symbols, in alignments, in archetypes. They are not gone. They are waiting. The wheel turns. The journey deepens. We come now to the core of the mystery. The zodiac is not merely above us. It is within us. To the ancient initiates, the 12 signs were not labels for personality types. They were 12 spiritual gates, 12 initiatory tests that the soul passes through both in the heavens and within the chambers of its own becoming. Each sign is an archetype, a mask worn by the divine as it descends into form. Each represents a mode of being, a station in the cycle of transformation. Together, they form the great spiral of incarnation, the zodiac not as a flat circle, but as a ladder of light and shadow, winding through the dimensions of consciousness. Let us walk this path, not as astrologers, but as seekers. The journey begins with Aries, the first fire, the primal thrust into existence. I am. The soul leaps from the void into motion, driven by divine will. This is not ego, but ignition. Aries is the flame that chooses to be. Then comes Taurus, the grounding of that spark into flesh. I have. The soul earns the density of matter, the sensuality of form. This is the Garden of Eden, the pleasure and peril of embodiment. With Gemini, the soul splits. I think. Duality arises. The first mirror. The child awakens to language, to paradox. Here begins the dance between light and shadow, self and other. Cancer arrives. I feel. The soul discovers the tides of emotion, the mystery of memory. This is the womb of return, the pull of the ancestral, the call of the inner world. Then comes Leo. I will. The divine spark now recognizes itself as sovereign. This is the stage of radiance, of creative fire, but also the trial of pride, the temptation of self as sun. Virgo. I analyze. The flame is tempered. The soul now seeks precision, purification. This is the alchemist's chamber, where gold is separated from dross, form from essence. With Libra, I balance. Comes the test of the heart. The soul stands between opposites, learning justice, symmetry, and sacred proportion. This is the first gate of true relationship with other, with self, with cosmos. Scorpio descends. I desire. Here lies death, transformation, sacred crisis. The mask is ripped away. The soul confronts the abyss, the shadow, the mysteries of sex and spirit. This is the underworld gate, where one must die to be reborn. Sagittarius. I seek. Out of death arises vision. The soul, cleansed, now hungers for meaning. This is the pilgrim, the philosopher, the one who remembers the stars. The arrow is loose toward truth. Then comes Capricorn. I use. The mountain climb begins. The soul now must embody what it has learned to build, to master, to govern self and structure. Here the seeker becomes the sage or the tyrant. Aquarius follows. I know. The old forms shatter. The soul touches the currents of higher mind, collective memory, divine intelligence. This is the lightning bringer, the awakener, but also the exile. And at last Pisces. I believe. The soul dissolves, returns, merges with the source. This is the ocean of all things, the sacred forgetting before the rebirth. The final test is surrender, and then the wheel turns again. These 12 are not merely energies, they are initiatory forces. In the ancient temples, these signs were mirrored in 12 gates or chambers. The initiate would pass through. Trials aligned with each archetype, not as metaphor, but as living experience. The signs were etched into walls not as decoration, but as a roadmap of inner alchemy. And above all, they were transmutable, for each sign contains its opposite. The fire of Leo becomes the humility of Virgo. The death of Scorpio becomes the vision of Sagittarius. The cycle is not linear, it spirals, it refines. In Gnostic and Hermetic systems, the soul was said to pass through the planetary spheres and zodiacal gates in both descent and ascent, shedding layers, taking on energies. To truly know thyself, one had to trace this entire path within. Thus, the Zodiac is a mirror of the great work, and just as alchemists transmuted base metal to gold, the Zodiac teaches how to transmute base self into awakened self, not through bypassing the signs, but by passing through them. Each pain, each passion, each paradox a necessary gate. This is the secret behind the 12-fold division seen in sacred architecture. In Gothic cathedrals, the 12 zodiac signs appear on rose windows and ceiling vaults. In esoteric Judaism, each tribe of Israel bore a sign. In Mithraic temples, the god slays the bull Taurus, symbolizing a transition of eons, a sacrifice of age. Why so much effort, so many symbols? Because the zodiac is the key to the soul's architecture. It is the cipher by which we may decode both ourselves and the cosmos. And so we begin to see the zodiac is not fortune-telling. It is remembrance, the remembrance of the path, the remembrance of the divine pattern, the remembrance of who you were before the world taught you otherwise. Now, as we stand before the 12 gates, we must ask, who placed them there, and why must we pass through them at all? We continue. There was a time, not in chronology, but in mythic time, when the stars and the soul moved in harmony. The priests read the sky like scripture. The temples rang with the music of the spheres. The seasons of the earth and the seasons of the soul were one. But then something broke. The fall was not only a story of paradise lost, it was a fall into time, into fragmentation, a forgetting of the divine pattern. The zodiac, once a living mystery, became a fossil, a relic, superstition. How? Let us return to Babylon. Here, under the shadow of ziggurats, the first known star maps were etched into clay, the mulapin tablets. The priests of the anew will catalog omens, eclipses, planetary motions. But this was not merely science. It was divination, the belief that the gods spoke through the sky. Yet over time, the relationship inverted. Instead of using the stars to align the self to the cosmos, kings used astrology to control. The wheel was no longer a symbol of return. It became a mechanism of power. The Egyptian priesthood, too, once custodians of stellar temples aligned with Orion and Sirius, became divided. Some kept the inner knowledge. Others traded it for hierarchy and control. The temples of Hathor and Dendera held sacred star maps, even a stone zodiac carved into the temple ceiling. But by the time of Rome, the gods had become actors, their symbols stripped of soul. Then came Christianity, and with it a rupture. The zodiac was not erased, but it was buried beneath doctrine, branded pagan, dangerous, heretical. The very cosmic order once painted across cathedrals was declared demonic by the same hands that preserved it in secret. Why? Because the zodiac pointed to something deeper than dogma. It suggested that divinity was cyclical, not linear, that time did not march forward in obedience to a final judgment, but turned endlessly in rebirth and transformation. It hinted that the soul did not need intercession, but only remembrance. This was forbidden, and so the zodiac was desacralized, reduced, cut from the great work. Where once it formed the backbone of spiritual education, now it was dismissed as entertainment, the daily horoscope, pop psychology wrapped in constellations. The stars still shone, but their music was forgotten. This suppression was not accidental. Throughout history, those who knew the truth encoded it in secret. The Hermeticists preserved it in alchemical glyphs. The Kabbalists wove it into the 12 permutations of the Tetragrammaton. The Rosicrucians, Freemasons, and Theosophists all mapped the zodiac onto their initiatory rites, quietly whispering the ancient names. But still, the public will turned empty. We must ask, why would such knowledge be hidden? Because it is dangerous, not in the way of curses or spells, but because it frees the seeker from the illusions of history. The zodiac reveals that our modern sense of time, linear, secular, severed, is an amnesia. That time itself was once ritual. That the ancients lived in a reality where myth and moment were one, where each season echoed a cosmic drama, and each soul traced a mythic path written in the stars. This is what was lost in the fall, not paradise, but pattern. The sacred calendar was shattered. The temples aligned to solstice and star now stand in silence, their meanings obscured. The festivals now float, untethered from their celestial anchors. And yet, in this fractured time, a pulse still beats. The zodiac never died. It waits, like a code buried in the earth's memory, etched in the bones of cathedrals and the spacing of pyramids, hidden in myth, hidden in plain sight. It is calling to those who remember, to those who feel the ache of forgotten order, who hear the echo of divine rhythm and dream and vision, to those who are ready not to believe, but to remember. The fall is not final. There is a return, and the zodiac is the key. But to reclaim it, we must go deeper, beyond symbol, beyond sky. We must step into the temple where time is born. We must learn to read the architecture of the heavens. What if the sky was never meant to be watched from afar, but entered? The ancients did not separate temple from cosmos. Their sanctuaries were not houses for worship. They were instruments, calibrated to the stars, built as mirrors of the divine order. And always, always, hidden within their sacred design was the zodiacal code. Let us return to Egypt. In the temple of Hathor, Dendera, a stone ceiling bears one of the most enigmatic artifacts of the ancient world, the Dendera Zodiac. It shows the 12 signs arranged in a circle, surrounded by constellations, planetary deities, and sacred animals. But this is no mere stargazer's chart. It is a map of cosmic process. Here, the stars were not distant. They were divine intelligences. The entire temple is structured to invoke the journey of the soul through the sky, from birth to death to rebirth. Each chamber corresponds to celestial stages. Each corridor is a phase of transformation. The initiate was meant to walk the zodiac, not study it. This is not unique to Egypt. In Stonehenge, the megaliths align with the solstices, but also mark lunar and stellar cycles. The 12 Aubrey holes may echo the 12-fold order across the sea. In Machu Picchu, temples are built to align with solstice sunrises. The Intihuatana, the hitching post of the sun, locks the heavens to stone. In India, the 12 Rasha signs of the Vedic zodiac are embedded in temple design. In Angkor Wat, Cambodia, the complex doubles as a star map of the constellation Draco, and encodes processional numbers with near impossible precision. Why this global obsession with stellar alignment? Because these were not buildings, they were portals. To walk through a sacred site was to walk the sky. To enter a zodiacal temple was to enter the machinery of time, not secular time, but sacred time, where every stone and angle corresponded to a cosmic archetype. These temples were living glyphs. The 12 signs were built into columns, 12 in number, each etched with glyphs of sun and moon. Chambers, designed to invoke the energetic trials of each sign. Windows, positioned to catch the light of a particular star on a specific day of the year. These structures were initiatory theaters, where the soul was brought into resonance with the heavens. The zodiac was not merely learned, it was experienced, embodied. In the Eleusinian mysteries, initiates passed through a sequence of ritual, deaths and rebirths aligned with cosmic cycles. In Hermetic temples, the heavens were painted onto domes, the ceiling becoming a sky, the priest becoming a mediator between earth and star. Even in Christian Europe, the memory lingers. Cathedrals like Chartres and Notre Dame are zodiacal vessels in stone. The rose windows show the signs surrounding the Virgin not as horoscope, but as cosmic order. 12 signs, 12 apostles, 12 hours of Christ's passion. Because the architects of these places remembered. They remembered that the zodiac was not a superstition. It was the geometry of the soul's ascent. Why do the 12 signs appear again and again in art, in architecture, in story? Because they are the celestial scaffolding upon which sacred consciousness is built. To stand beneath the dome of a sacred temple, to see Aries rise in spring, or Leo at high summer, is to witness the turning of the soul through the great spiral. Modern architecture has forgotten this language, but the old stones remember, and for those with eyes to see, the temples still speak. They whisper in the cracks of granite. In the beam of light that touches altar on equinox, they murmur through the wind as it moves through colonnades once walked by priests of forgotten names. And they say this: the zodiac was never about fate, it was always about transcendence. The 12 gates are not barriers, they are thresholds, not walls, but doorways to divine remembrance. Now, let us go beyond even the temple, let us return to the sky itself, and listen for the deeper rhythm beneath the visible stars. For the zodiac does not move alone, it turns with something far older. Time, to the ancients, was not a straight line. It did not march forward into progress or entropy. It turned like a great wheel, folding back upon itself in spirals, seasons, and ages. And at the center of that wheel, the zodiac, we must now step beyond the visible stars and enter the hidden rhythm behind the constellations, the great astronomical secret guarded by initiates, mystics, and priest astronomers for thousands of years, the precession of the equinoxes. Here is the mystery. Every spring the sun rises in front of a different backdrop of stars, a slow drift, nearly imperceptible in a single lifetime, but monumental across millennia. This cycle, caused by the Earth's axial wobble, takes approximately 25,920 years to complete. This vast circle is known to occultists as the Great Year, a divine cycle older than all empires. It moves backward through the zodiac, tracing 12 great ages, each lasting roughly 2,160 years. This was no abstract concept to the ancients. They encoded it in myths, monuments, and manuscripts. In Egypt, the Sphinx, lion-bodied and staring east, hints at a time when the spring equinox fell in Leo. In Mesopotamia, bulls and rams were revered when the sun rose in Taurus and Aries, respectively. In the Bible, Moses ends the age of Taurus by smashing the golden calf, ushering in Aries, the age of the ram and the sacrificial lamb. With the dawn of Pisces, the fish becomes the central symbol of Christianity. It's these, the fisher of men. The signs of the zodiac were never static. They were cosmic thresholds, governing not only individuals, but entire civilizations. Each great age carried its own archetypal imprint. Taurus 430 to 150 BCE, the age of earth and fertility, of goddess worship, agriculture, bull cults. Stone temples rose in silence and sacred proportion. Aries 2150 BCE to 01 CE, the age of fire, conquest, war. The gods became masculine, empires expanded. Law replaced myth. Pisces 01 CE, 2000 CE, the age of water, belief, sacrifice. Duality, faith, the age of prophets, martyrs, and blind devotion. And now we stand at the threshold of Aquarius, the water bearer, the awakener, the electric mind, the storm. Before the new spring, Aquarius is not peace, it is disruption. It brings revelation, but also rebellion. Its symbol, a human pouring water, is not about comfort. It is about purification, a great washing away. In esoteric prophecy, the age of Aquarius is the return of memory, a reweaving of science and spirit, the rediscovery of sacred technology, the lifting of veils. This is not New Age fantasy, is the hidden current beneath all of history. The precession governs the rise and fall of empires, the shift of gods, the pulse of myth. Ancient texts knew this. The Zoroastrian Avesta speaks of world ages ruled by stars. The Hindus charted the yugas, cosmic ages of light and darkness, measured in tens of thousands of years. The Maya tracked time in cycles of 5,200 years, nested fractals of galactic rhythm, all pointed to one truth. Time is not linear, it is encoded, and the zodiac is the cipher. The 12 signs are not only a circle of personality or even a map of initiation. They are the chapters of a cosmic book, turning slowly with each eon. The great secret of the initiates was not just to know these ages, but to remember their rhythm within themselves, to align the microcosm with the macrocosm, to live not in calendar time, but in zodiacal time. This is why the Hermetic law says, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, because the soul is the zodiac, and the zodiac is the clock of the soul's awakening. Now as we cross into a new age, the veils thin, the ancient knowledge stirs. You were born into this time for a reason. The age is shifting, and with it, the gates reopen. But there is a final layer, hidden still. Beneath the visible constellations, beneath the processional rhythm, there lies a deeper zodiac, a mystical geometry by which the universe itself was designed. It is to this secret geometry that we must now turn. Beneath myth and star, beneath temple and age, lies something older still, geometry. But not the geometry of angles and measurements. The ancients revered a geometry that was alive, sacred, a divine architecture woven into all of creation. And the zodiac, that 12-fold crown above our world, was one of its most perfect expressions. This was not mere symbolism, it was law. The zodiac is a circle minus 360 degrees, divided by 12. Each sign takes up 30 degrees of sky. But these are not arbitrary divisions. The circle itself is the most sacred of shapes, representing eternity, unity. The Ouroboros, the serpent consuming its own tail. To divide the circle by 12 is to create a harmonic field. 12 is the number of completion, of universal order. 12 hours in day and night, 12 months in the year, 12 notes in the chromatic musical scale, 12 cranial nerves in the human body, 12 signs in the zodiac, each resonating with one of these vibrations. The ancients saw this and whispered, "The stars sing." For them, the zodiac was not only a visual phenomenon, it was a resonant model, a map of divine proportion. The structure of it aligned with sacred geometry, Platonic solids, and the mathematics of the soul. Let us take a step inward. At the center of the 12-fold wheel stands the circle, the one, the source. From it radiates the cross of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, the 4 gates of the year aligned with equinoxes and solstices. This cross, inscribed within the circle, creates the foundation of sacred space. North, south, east, west, body, mind, spirit, shadow. Overlay this with the hexagram, the 6-pointed star, and you invoke the dual trinity, fire and water, above and below, male and female. Within the zodiac, this 6-fold pattern generates the polarities of the signs, 6 axes of opposition and balance. Now the pentagram, symbol of the microcosm, the perfected human. This 5-pointed star, rotating through the 12 signs, mirrors Venus's orbit, forming a perfect 5-petal rose in the sky every 8 years. The ancients saw this too. They saw that the zodiac was not a random set of stars, it was a clock, a calendar, a map of the human soul, and a cosmic machine built on ratios that mirrored the structure of music, of DNA, of spiral galaxies. The Great Pyramid of Giza encodes the precessional number to 25,920 years in its base and slope. The dimensions of ancient temples reflect Phi, the golden ratio, a divine proportion also seen in the spiral of a nautilus shell, the shape of hurricanes, and the growth of leaves. As above, so below. The signs themselves correspond to alchemical principles, fire, earth, air, water, not just as elements, but as states of being. Fire, impulse, will, divine spark, earth, form, substance, manifestation, air, mind, language, movement, water, feeling, memory, soul. The signs rotate through these elements in a precise sequence. Not chaos, but choreography, a spiritual dance that turns the soul through its many guises. This is why the tree of life in Kabbalah places the zodiac at the outer ring, the living boundary of manifest form. The angels of the Sephirot work through these 12 signs, guiding the soul's descent and return. The Sefer Yetzirah, one of the oldest mystical texts of Judaism, declares God engraved the universe with 3 things: number, letter, and sound. And where are all 3 encoded? In the zodiac. Number, in its geometry; letter, in the ancient glyphs and sacred names; sound, in the music of the spheres, the silent song of the stars. This is not metaphor, it is physics, metaphysics, and mysticism bound as one. The zodiac is the divine blueprint, the scaffolding upon which myth is hung, but also the inner DNA of the cosmos. The soul, in its journey, moves not randomly, but according to this pattern. And now, in our own age, with science and spirit converging, this geometry speaks again. Fractals, semantics, frequency medicine, and quantum harmonics are all reawakening the language the ancients knew. Form is vibration. Vibration is number. Number is spirit. The zodiac is the sacred chord of the universe, a spiral of returning sound and light. To learn its pattern is not to master fate, but to remember harmony. And this memory leads to the final gate. The veil lifts one last time, not onto symbol, but into revelation. The zodiac does not merely reflect the heavens, it reveals the inner temple, the one hidden in the seeker's own soul. And so the circle closes, 12 signs, 12 gates, 12 reflections of a pattern far older than memory, yet etched deep in the soul like an ancient scar. The ancients did not study the zodiac. They did not believe in it, they remembered it because they knew. The stars above were the stars within. Each human soul, before its descent into matter, was said to pass through the celestial gates of the zodiac, receiving the imprint of each sign, the flavor of each element. The Gnostics taught that our essence moves through the spheres, clothed in layers of forgetfulness, until it is born into time under a specific sky at a specific hour. But those signs, Aries through Pisces, were never meant to define us. They were meant to remind us of what we carry. The zodiac is a mirror, and the one who gazes into it is not the personality, but the eternal self. Hermetic teachings. The final ascent of the soul after death was marked by the shedding of each astral layer, the unbinding of the zodiacal seals. At each gate, a sign, a challenge, a question. Do you still carry pride? Asks Leo. Do you cling to control? Asks Capricorn. Do you fear surrender? Whispers Pisces. And the soul, stripped of its illusions, returns lighter to the center, to the still point, to the one. This is why the zodiac was carved into the ceilings of sacred tombs. Why? It crowned the domes of ancient temples. Why mystics from Persia to Peru aligned their sanctuaries with its rhythm? Because it was not merely a calendar. It was the spiritual architecture of return. The zodiac tells us that life is not a single story, but a turning, a spiral, a cycle of remembering, forgetting, and remembering again. We fall, we rise, we fall again, but the pattern holds, and this is the greatest secret. The zodiac is not in the sky. It was never in the stars. It is the path your soul has always known. It appears above, only to awaken what sleeps below. It appears in myth only to reveal the mythmaker. It appears in time only to draw you out of it. You are not your sign. You are not your chart. You are the one who passed through all 12 gates and lived to tell the story, and now here in this moment, the wheel turns again. You are at the center. The signs surround you, whispering what you have forgotten. Aries says, you are the spark. Taurus says, you are the temple. Gemini says, you are the mirror. Cancer says, you are the tide. Leo says, you are the flame. Virgo says, you are the purifier. Libra says, you are the balance. Scorpio says, you are the shadow. Sagittarius says, you are the seeker. Capricorn says, you are the mountain. Aquarius says, you are the current. Pisces says, you are the ocean. And the voice beyond all signs says, you are the wheel itself, not bound by fate, but forged by memory, not defined by symbols, but creator of them. The zodiac is your echo calling you home. And now as the stars move above and the inner temple stirs, one question remains. Will you remember? Will you walk the path not to know, but to become? The gate is open. The journey never ends. The soul remembers. And the stars are watching.